Russian contract which fell through because a patrician, aloof Englishman was sent to negotiate it rather than a congenial, bewhiskered French or German up from the country who would never dare to attempt a deal unless it was done over dinner. Finally, RefRep. They are 9% of the Europeans who believe in the reformist harmlessness of money and in pragmatic republican communitarianism and humanism. This is the case of Finland and of parts of Switzerland, but possibly more importantly, as a worldview, it is especially the case of the United States, which are founded on European values of Calvinism and republicanism. The Protestant preoccupation with time, which is money and can be lost or saved, brings the Americans to not to feel it necessary to take the time to understand or to explain for action to be taken, and to stop meetings only because time is up. They leave their RomRep colleagues reeling, who believe that meetings are about understanding context or getting support, and not about taking decisions. Is this why Henry Ford famously said that history is bunk? And why mistakes are repeated so often? Winston Churchill said, "You can always count on Americans to do the right thing," Calvinist, after they tried everything else. Well, that's probably Calvinist too, in that time is money and time must be saved. It's a Calvinist obsession with the right thing to do of the American TV soaps, where morality is thought to be absolute, and where morality ends up being far more destructive than constructive, if we are to believe the example that the American TV soap writers give us. The rigidity of absolute morality also disturbs RomReps. Try gently pushing a parked car using your own car bumper fender in the States, as you might in Paris, to force some parking space, but in a Zurich street, and you could find yourself violently arrested on the spot by a passing Swiss pedestrian, and find yourself in the closest police station. Similarly, waspish dislike of the sinner supports the continuation of the death penalty in the USA. Absolute morality. We saw an example of a Spanish manager resigning because an American RefRep boss who learnt open community living as a child at school and in his family was not sensitive to the cultural need in monarchy for respecting hierarchy and for the subordinate to engage one-on-one with the master. Another example of insensitivity was at this corporate dinner in Florida, where an American manager, born in the South, invited 500 international guests, including Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Shintoists, to rise before dinner while he recited a Christian grace over the microphone. Insensitivity. Certain of the cultures we have seen are clearly opposed, such as the French RomReps and the British Refmons. Others share certain values, such as the American RefReps and the British Refmons, who have common reformist values on the subject, for example, of capitalism. The rest show similar values and behaviour, and among RomReps, for example, French, Italians, Portuguese and Irish do see eye to eye about so many issues. We could include Greece or even Russia, if we accept that little separates the values of Orthodox Christianity from those of Roman Catholicism. All of these countries have reacted similarly to the prime rate financial crisis precipitated by unregulated American capitalism. Such reasoning gives a behavioral model which we can plot on a grid of 4 axes, the axes being ROM-REP, ROMON, REFMON, and REFRAP. These profiles predict very well national values, behaviours, cultural differences, cultural similarities, and there's serious gaps of understanding between nationals of European countries. It helps us to understand why Europeans don't understand each other in their beliefs about time, money, communitarianism or individualism, privilege, individual or social responsibility, the role of the state, inductive or deductive thought, about pragmatism or dogmatism, about rights and duties, about class struggle or egalitarianism, about chauvinism, xenophobia, and probably a host of other isms as well. The model has been statistically confirmed using data from prominent social scientists. It may appear to suffer from the old problem of generalizing human values and behavior, but the analyses are extremely convincing as to the true existence of these stereotypes and the way in which Christian and political beliefs are indisputably at the root of the model make it very solid indeed. If you want to know more, then I do suggest you read the book. If I had to draw 2 significant conclusions from these ideas. First, the European cultural patchwork of Nordic, Baltic, Saxon, Celtic, Gallic, Hispanic, Latin, German, Greek, Slav peoples is a real challenge for those managing the European community. And I continue to be very pessimistic about the likelihood during the current generation of the dream coming true of this humanistic ROM-REP federalism of a kind so dear to the French, Italians, and Poles, being imposed on all 27 countries of the Commonwealth, many of which are heavily Protestant and monarchical, and too far removed from any possibility of such thinking. Secondly, if the United States is to succeed in promoting its model of civilization, then it must control its isolationist impulses. A united humanist Europe must try to help the United States to control its tendency towards this reformist intolerance and to respect diversity in the global community. A conflict between China and the United States would be far more serious than the other ancient, already serious global conflict between Islam and Christianity. Understanding and accepting cultural diversity must be an educational priority everywhere, including the United States. Finally, let's not forget that the specificity of Europe is a common religion, Christianity, and 2 political constitutional models which are monarchy and republic, and which find their roots in Europe. Athens and Jerusalem may have had their role to play in European antiquity. Excuse me. But today, all European states owe their modernism to the upheavals of the Reformation and of the French Revolution, which spawned contemporary republicanism, and that far more than to Plato or to the Torah. The roles of the older monarchy and Catholicism, tempered by the younger republic and Protestantism, are the true keys today to understanding cultural differences in Europe and its satellite nations. Thank you.